The following is a presentation of the Sports Stove Media in partnership with Belly Up Sports. Here's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove football show. My goodness, we got a lot to talk about. College football playoffs, NFL picks, and the top 5 active NFL head coaches. That's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove podcast. Welcome in to an all-new edition of the Sports Stove Football Show. It's been a couple weeks since we've been with you. A lot of scheduling conflicts over the last couple weeks, but we're back now, and we're here to talk lots of football. We've got NFL another week ahead. We are in the final regular season of the fantasy football, the regular season before we head into the playoffs there. So important games, of course, this week. And then college football erupted into a fight fest this weekend. Several different fights because of flags being planted on midfields all across the United States. I've got my opinions on that, but yeah, we'll talk about it. I'm Vince Stover. I'm joined, as I am for this show, by my dad, Dale Stover. Dad, how you doing?
Doing good. Like you said, a lot of football stuff, a lot of exciting things going on, and even get more exciting in the next few weeks. But definitely a lot up in the air tonight, heading into this weekend.
Yeah, let's start with the fights. Michigan, Ohio State got into it. NC State and North Carolina got into it. Texas, I think Texas is an A&M, right? I don't remember. Somebody else got into it as well this week, fighting just because the winning team tried to plant the flag at the opposing team's midfield. What are your thoughts on planting the flag and the hubbub all about it?
Well, it's something that, if they want to stop it, then they're going to have to do something serious. This year they really did kind of hype the rivalry thing. And, when you do that, there's always going to be a lot of feelings when you got these games on the last weekend, whether it's in-state or whether it's just rivals. From that standpoint, it seems like it's kind of an unspoken thing that, when you're on somebody else's field, you're supposed to be careful about the logo in the center of the field. I was at a game once where the visiting team pulled an upset, and they started to go to the logo on the center of the field, and the coach, the people at the school stopped that. I was in the stands and heard people say, and again, these weren't real loyal fans. This was a Vanderbilt MTSU game, and but the deal is no, not on the logo. So it seems like there's just been a little bit, of unwritten rule etiquette. Etiquette's probably doesn't fit this situation at all, but I don't know. And because again, like I just heard a little bit about the after game with Ohio State and Michigan. I watched that. It's very emotional at the end of the game, so it doesn't take much to set things off. And again, I would think if you win a big game like that, hey, be excited that you won, go over to the corner where your fans are, celebrate. To me, it's always a little weird that they sing their school songs and do all that in the other stadium, but you can do that over in the corner, and that's always been done. It seems like that would be sufficient from there. I know there was a lot of talk this year. I thought they were working on about storming the field, but that hasn't stopped or anything like that. Yeah. I remember years and years ago in college basketball, a thing got started about fighting. It involved Georgetown and somebody, and all of a sudden everybody started doing it, and they realized that needed to stop, and so they got that stopped. This might be a little tougher. Again, the schools and the leadership on the team would be the ones that would have to try to control this. No doubt about it. If it needs to be controlled.
Well, that's who should have controlled it from the get-go. I mean, we have lost all hope of sportsmanship in general. I mean, you can win and celebrate without degrading the team that you beat. I mean, the scoreboard alone is degrading. You don't have to do other things. Baker planted the flag. It fit Baker's personality. It was kind of what it was, whatever, back in the day. T.O., he was in Dallas, he ran to the star and celebrated, and he got hit for doing it, those kinds of things. I think it's got to start with that, with sportsmanship again. Do we have it? Do we need it? I think we do. Win your game and celebrate. Take a lap around with the flag, but I don't think there's any need to plan it. I don't think there's any need. Michigan, a couple of years ago, went out and was using the cleats to tear up the logo before the game. Like, that just kind of stuff just doesn't make any sense. So win with character, lose with character. And I think the fights were petty and stupid as well, personally. But again, if you don't want them to plant the flag on your logo, how about you just beat them? And then you don't have to worry about it. And there's no reason why Ohio State should have lost that game. They beat themselves in that game. And I didn't watch the NC State North Carolina game. But was it NC State North Carolina? I forget who it was. I think it was. Anyways, yeah, we can do better as a society. We can do better in college football as well. But we are here now. We got championship weekend this weekend, and then we've got the playoffs coming up, the first ever expanded playoffs here in the college football playoff world. Currently, the top 12 are Oregon, Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame, Georgia, Ohio State, Tennessee, SMU, Indiana, Boise State, Alabama, and Miami. Dad, of those 12 teams, I got 7 that I have listed as locks into the college playoff ranking, leaving 5 spots open to however this weekend plays out in the college football world. So here are my 7, and you can tell me if you disagree or agree with me. All right. Oregon locked in. They're the only undefeated team left. Even if they lose this weekend to Penn State, they're still going to be in the playoffs. You're not going to drop from 1 out of the top 12. So Oregon is a lock. Do you agree?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Texas, number 2, again, 11-1. If they lose, they'll only have 2 losses. They're not going to drop 10 spaces or more out of the playoffs. Even if they lose, even if they get their rear ends handed to them, Texas is locked into the playoffs. Do you agree?
Yes.
All right. So far, so good. Penn State, another 11-1 team. Again, I think you're 11-1 now, and you lose in the championship game to an undefeated Oregon. I don't think it matters in your playoff hopes. I think Penn State's locked in as well.
Yeah, I think they are because, like I said, being 11-1 and where they're at there in the conference they're in.
Great. Notre Dame, they're not playing. They 11-1. They're number 4. There's no way in the world they get dropped out of the playoffs either. So Notre Dame is locked in and loaded for the playoffs as well. The Irish make it again, or make it in for this first time. Yes. Then I gets a little bit more interesting. I'll give you 3 teams: Ohio State, Tennessee, and Indiana. 3 teams that will not play a game this weekend, so they can't hurt themselves, and they're currently ranked 6th, 7th, and 9th. And I just can't imagine there being teams that are going to jump Indiana, Tennessee, and Ohio State to the point where they drop out of the playoffs. You could maybe argue Indiana, but they're 11-1. There's no reason why they shouldn't be in the playoffs. I believe Ohio State, Tennessee, and Indiana are locks for the playoffs as well.
Yes, I think they would be. A lot of it is the conference they're in. They're in power conferences. Now, again, Indiana's schedule, they did beat a couple other pretty good teams, didn't they, coming down the line?
I mean, not great teams. Their schedule was not hard. But, I mean, they're number 9 currently. So yeah. What's going to happen that drops them out of the top 12?
No, with them not playing, I think they're safe there. And definitely Ohio State and Tennessee are, I believe. So,
yeah, Indiana beat Purdue, Michigan, which looks like a better win now as well. Michigan State, Washington, Nebraska, Northwestern, Maryland, Charlotte, UCLA, Western Illinois, and FIU, Florida International. No, their schedule was horrible, incredibly easy. But hey, they won every game except Ohio State. And again, I just don't see the way for them to drop, 3 spots and out of the playoffs.
You got some teams there, like you said, with Michigan. I think you have Nebraska. There was one other one that kind of jumped out. Or they're decent teams. So, Team Indiana would have lost 2 in the past. So
true, that is true. Yeah, I think you got to reward them for winning games this year. Okay, so those are my only locks. Do you have any other locks into the playoffs?
I should have looked. How many losses does Georgia have?
They're currently at 2 losses.
Yeah, I think Georgia will be pretty hard to be left out unless they get blown out by Texas. I would think Georgia is would be a 3-loss team that would get in, but I don't know that it's a lock.
So exactly. So I have them as a probably. They're my only team that I have as a probably, and going from 5 to 13 would be a big drop. And so if Texas just absolutely dominates them, maybe that could happen. I think Georgia's probably safe, but I wasn't willing to lock them in just yet because, again, 3 losses is a painful thing. And we'll talk about this, I guess, more in a moment, but we can bring it up now. I mean, what happens if Arizona State and Iowa State is a phenomenal game? Just a phenomenal game. The reality is the winner gets in, the loser gets left out of that Big 12 championship game. But I mean, Alabama's 3 losses, they lost to Vanderbilt. I don't care. You can talk until you're blue in the face. You can't lose to Vanderbilt if you're Alabama, and that wasn't their only loss. So 3 losses for Alabama. They should not be in the playoffs. We'll talk about that more, though. I'm getting ahead of myself. All right, so let's talk about winning you're in. Teams that have to win. If they win, they're in. SMU and Clemson are playing in the ACC championship game. Winner gets in. I have SMU as I was trying to figure out if they lost, they'd only be 11-2. What if they lost a close game? SMU could still stay in the playoffs, but I think I kind of feel like they have to win in order to get in. What are your thoughts on SMU?
Yeah, like you said, they're going to be 11-2. I think it might depend on how the game goes.
Yeah.
From there, I mean, again, if it's a close game, then 11-2. This is where you're going to have a lot of people start screaming when you get 3 lost teams in and somebody else with 2 losses, because SMU beat some decent teams, didn't they? They don't have a real schedule, I'm sure.
It's not great. Yeah. California, Virginia, Boston College. They beat Pitt when Pitt was ranked 18. Duke, they beat in overtime. Stanford, Louisville was another ranked win. Florida State, TCU, BYU. No, BYU beat them. That's their 1 loss. And Houston Christian and Nevada. So, I mean, again, not a strong schedule, but I would put in a 2-loss SMU team over a 3-loss Alabama. Like, I don't get where I'm still getting ahead of myself on Alabama here. Let's hold off on the Alabama talk. But yeah, I think SMU, if they win, they're obviously in. If they lose and it's a good game, it's a close game, they don't have any major injuries, because that's how it works, right? I mean, if the quarterback goes down or the running back goes down, then and they lose, the committees will just say, well, they're not going to be good enough to win. So SMU deserves to be there, I think, but I think they have to win in order to be in.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. Them and they play Arizona State. You said correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the winner.
No, they play Clemson.
Oh, Clemson. Okay, that's right. Yeah, I think in both cases, probably the winner, they're going to have to win to get in. So
yeah, Clemson definitely. They're at 17. They're a 3-loss team. They have to win the championship in order to make the playoffs. SMU, I think, is deserving, but I think they get left out if they lose that game against Clemson.
Yeah, I think that's true, because you got teams like Miami and teams like that are still in there. So
yeah. Arizona State, Iowa State play. Winner gets in, loser does not. This is the Big 12 championship this year. I'm rooting for Iowa State. I got a kid who's been on my program a couple different times. Jaden Higgins, the wide receiver. So I'm rooting for him personally. At the end of the day, I really don't care who wins the Big 12, but that's the only rooting interest I have. But winner gets in, loser stays out on that one. UNLV playing in a championship game against Boise. Boise State is in currently. Again, though, they're at 10. So if they lose, even though they'll be 11-2, and even though they've got the Heisman Trophy leading candidate on the team, they're going to get jumped by Alabama if they lose this conference championship game, and I just don't think that's right. I think Boise should make it no matter what as a 1-loss or a 2-loss team, but I just don't see the committee letting that happen. So UNLV is out right now. If they win, obviously they go in as the champions there, but I don't like it. I think Boise should be in either way, but I don't think they're a lock because that's not how college playoffs work. Your thoughts on that?
I don't think they're a lock, but the fact that they've got the kid that might get the Heisman Trophy, that's not going to hurt.
Right.
So, again, it'd be much better probably for the whole seeding if Boise State wins, because UNLV is going to be one of those that, wouldn't have a chance at all otherwise. So, now again, if UNLV blew them out, that would be different. But the thing that might help, it'll be interesting to see, what the committee looks at. But
right.
Having the Heisman Trophy guy, and he may not win it, but that might help them a little bit. But they'll be hard pressed. 2 wins though, boy, it sure makes sense for them to be in. So
I'm intrigued by this one to see how that one. That's where you're going to get your complaining in and things like that. SMU and Boise State are the two. If they lose, that you're going to say, well, how are they not in over these 3-loss teams for sure? I mentioned Georgia. Georgia is my probably. I think they're safe, but again, if they lose, especially if they lose ugly, that could be problems for Georgia. Okay, so Alabama currently in. They're ranked number 11, which I hate. I just don't get it. I hate it. I think it's disgusting. Here's how Alabama can be kicked out of the playoffs. If UNLV wins and Boise stays in the playoffs, that has to happen. Then Clemson beats SMU and SMU stays in the playoffs, and Georgia wins on Saturday. That would be UNLV, Boise State, Clemson, SMU, and Georgia all in the playoffs, and Alabama out. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think even if those teams win, if UNLV wins, Boise might be able to stay in. But again, if SMU and Boise lose, SMU's ranked higher, so you would think they still stick around higher, but who knows? I just really don't think Alabama should be in the playoffs currently as a 3-loss team. It just doesn't make sense to me when you've got Arizona State and Iowa State at 2 losses and in their conference championship games. Alabama's at 3 losses and not in their conference championship game. I don't like it. So I don't know. Your thoughts, Alabama? Should they be in? Will they be in?
Well, in the bracket right now, is Miami in? Or are they out? They're in.
Yeah, Miami's 12.
Okay, and that may be one that's kind of in flux. I would think at 10-2 and not playing, they should be okay, but they didn't get in their conference championship game. So
right, the Iowa State, Arizona State kicks out Miami. Whoever wins the Big 12 moves into the top 12, and would knock Miami out of the playoffs.
Okay. Again, with Miami having a better record, and I'd have to look at their schedule, it seems like that would make more sense. Of course, we've talked about this, and I told you, Alabama is going to be, a deal here because they're going to want them in. And he doesn't coach there anymore, but Nick Saban has a lot of pull, and that's why Alabama's getting in. There's no doubt about that. From there's going to be a lot of screaming and hollering. I heard a lot of talk today. Ole Miss, I guess, beat somebody a lot worse than Alabama did.
Yeah, South Carolina.
But they're not going to get in. South Carolina is going to get left out, and we will see. Now Alabama, they lost to Tennessee and Vanderbilt and Georgia. Is that right?
I think they beat Georgia. That's why they're still in the hunt.
They lose to Texas.
Texas. Let's see here. I should know this off the top of my head, but Oklahoma. They got whooped by Oklahoma.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And that's really the loss that ought to take them out of it. When you look at that, and that happened near the end of the season, getting beat the way they did by Oklahoma, that should take care of it. Now, did they play Texas? Did they play both? No. And they beat Georgia.
They beat Georgia by a touchdown. Then they lost to ranked Tennessee, but they lost to unranked Oklahoma and unranked Vanderbilt. And they gave up 40 points against Vanderbilt, and they only scored 3 points against Oklahoma.
Yeah, two.
I don't know how wins over LSU and Georgia erase losses from Oklahoma and Vanderbilt.
Yeah, the committee's going to have to look at, and you're going to hear a lot of talk about good wins and bad losses. And Alabama has the bad losses, no doubt about that.
But Miami does not have the good wins.
Yeah.
But again, it's their schedule. They, and Miami lost to Syracuse. If Miami beats Syracuse, then they're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But they lose to Syracuse. They drop 6 spots in the rankings. And now they're the team to get knocked out by the Big 12 champion, right now. So,
well, everybody in the SEC and the Big Ten have an advantage because of the conferences they're in and the strength, even no matter what their schedule was. So there's, no doubt about that. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. And again, I think the games on Saturday could have some bearing on it, no doubt about that. And it'll be interesting to see, we've talked a little bit, will conferences want to keep having conference championship games? I think they'll have to because of the money.
Well, they have to lock in a playoff spot.
I mean, that's true.
And they get a bye as well. So, that's not going to change. It helps the conferences because they're going to get more teams in because I think at least because, Tennessee, Ohio State, Indiana, they're in because they're not playing this weekend. They can't mess up their resume anymore. So, but it brings some fun to it. Friday night, UNLV and Boise State kick off at 8:00 on Fox. Tulane and Army also playing at 8:00 on Friday at 8:00 on ABC. Saturday, you got Iowa State, Arizona State at noon, Georgia, Texas at 4, Penn State, Oregon at 8, and then Clemson and SMU at 8 as well. To close out the championship games of the ones that matter. It's going to be interesting for sure. It'll keep everybody tuned in on Saturday. We ready to go to the NFL, Dad, or you got anything else to add for college?
No, I think that's fine. It's good. I think these playoffs are going to be good, and turned out there's a lot of excitement for the last 2 weeks leading up to it. So I think that's all good for college football. Much better than having just 4 teams and having 4 weeks off before the championship game. So, and we'll see how the playoffs go. I think it'll be fun having those at schools, stadiums. That'll be good. And it'll only take one of those teams upsetting somebody, and this will really be good. So,
we can see more flags planted at midfield, more punches thrown. It'll be just phenomenal. We'll see. All right, let's transition to the NFL. Coming off of Thanksgiving week, we had a lot of football over Thanksgiving week, a lot of crazy football over Thanksgiving week. Lions just barely get past the Bears thanks to Matt Eberflus being an incompetent head coach and gets fired after the game. Cowboys able to pull it off against the Giants, Packers over the Dolphins. Chiefs and Raiders game ends so weird. It just keeps happening. There's reasons for it. There's rules that are being followed, but man, the Chiefs just get lucky so often. And they got lucky with the Raiders. A false start that got, according to the rules, changed to an illegal shift, so the play was allowed to happen. Fumbled snap. Chiefs pick it up and seal the game. Wild stuff there on that Friday night. Steelers probably eliminate the Bengals on Sunday. Colts barely beat out the Patriots. I'm trying to think. The Jets continue to stink. The Jaguars lose their quarterback to a nasty hit against the Texans. let's see here. The Panthers are looking good all of a sudden. They're looking like they might have a future. That's exciting. And then the Eagles beat the Ravens. Bills beat the 49ers. And Broncos and Browns put on a show on Monday night as well. So a busy week 13, Dad, pulls us into week 14, and we can talk about these teams as we make our picks this week as well. Let's start with Thursday night. Again, we're picking primetime games, and then we'll fill out to a full pick six games for the week. Thursday night, though, is the rematch Packers and Lions. This one in Detroit. Detroit is simply a 3-point favorite, Dad. That's it. All they're getting is the home 3. I'm a little surprised by that, honestly. I thought Lions would be 5 or 6, maybe even. But the respect is going to Green Bay right now on this Thursday night. I know we like the Packers. I know we believe in the Packers. I'm sure we're both picking the Packers. But the Lions have been impressive to a degree, and it should be a fun game on Thursday.
Yeah. Again, the Lions have been good all year, and I think deserve to be where they're at. I've watched their last 2 or 3 games, and they're definitely beatable. Again, they've had some injuries. They've got some more injuries. Now, the Packers have some injuries too, but they've played the last week or 2 without these players. And, I think they're focused on this. This should be a very, very good football game. You've got 2 good offensive minds here calling the plays. And both teams obviously know each other. It's getting to where they really don't like each other and a little more, and no doubt about that. So we will see. Yeah, I think the Packers have a great chance at this. It can still keep them in the hunt for the division. Yeah. And when you look at who the teams, the people Detroit's got left, Detroit needs to probably win this in order to really, have a stranglehold on the division there. So we will see. But, I'll pick the Packers, and I think they have a really good chance. So we'll see. Again, they've just got to cut out the penalties and the stupid mistakes. And if they do that, they're in real good shape here, I think.
Yeah, and of course the Vikings are right there, a game back from Detroit. Green Bay's 2 games back from Detroit. That division's going to be a fun race all the way through. But yeah, we'll both go Green Bay in this one. Some of that's a little bit of just hope, probably, versus fully believing. But I mean, we definitely think they can win, and we'll go with them in that game. Sunday night is the Chiefs and the Chargers. Chiefs are 3.5-point favorites at home in this one. They've already lost one, Dad. I know you don't have any respect for the Chargers, but I really like some of the things the Chargers are doing right now. And Chiefs look so bad. I know the weather wasn't great, but look so bad against Vegas. I think I'm going to go Chargers in this game this week, Dad. Who are you going with?
Well, I'll go with the Chiefs, but I will tell you the Chargers are playing well, and I think they're in good shape to get in the playoffs. I don't like Harbaugh, but as far as the team's playing well, I do like their quarterback. They've got some great defensive players, some good talent, and I think they're in good shape to make the playoffs. But Kansas City is good. You take Kansas City and the Raiders. That's a rivalry that goes way, way back. A lot of the players weren't involved, obviously, in that. But to me, it's hard to pick against the Chiefs, and Chiefs being at home, so I'll go with the Chiefs. But I think Chargers are still in good shape here the rest of the year.
Yeah, I think that's probably a smart pick, but you got to get an upset every now and then. And the way the Chargers have been playing and the way the Chiefs have been playing, the Chiefs get Pacheco back last week, doesn't do much, but he'll get better and healthier as well, which will be positive for them. Chargers are beat up too, but I'm just going to go with the upset in this one. Monday night, oh my goodness, you talk about before the season saying, hey, this would be a good matchup, and now you're looking at a 4-8 Bengals team against a 5-7 Dallas team, and I'm sure the Monday night guys are thinking, what did we do to get this game? Listen, I think both of these coaches are on the hot seat. I think McCarthy's more likely to get fired than the Bengals firing their coach, but this is, you're just playing for pride here on Monday night, and that's it. You're not playing for any other reason, just for pride. Bengals, Cowboys, who are you going with in this game?
I'm going to go with the Bengals again. I don't know about that. As far as the Monday night game, you've got they always want Dallas to be on that, and Joe Burrow, is still playing real well. They have some players on there that are, and you're right. The coach may be what's on the hot seat here. We'll see, but definitely it'd be a big game for definitely the Cincinnati coach. Even if they don't make the playoffs, for them to win the last two or three out of 4 out of the last 5, yeah, it would be big around here because things have changed around here with the Bengals. There wasn't any Bengal fans a few years ago, and now they're selling the stadium out and promoting and everything along there. Now they're going to have a lot of turnover because they haven't signed some of their key players and a lot of things like that. But I'm going to go with the Bengals again. As you know, I'm not a big Cowboys fan, and I'm not having Dak Prescott. I think the Bengals have a good shot at this, so we'll go with the Bengals.
Well, that's it. You look at quarterback, Cowboys, Cooper Rush. I still don't understand why he's playing. I don't understand why Trey Lance isn't getting a shot. It blows my mind. But I'm going Bengals also. They are a 5-point favorite on the road. They are the better team currently, so I'm going with Cincinnati as well. All right, we got 3 more games to pick. Who are you going with for game number 4?
Well, I've done pretty good on my picks so far this year, so I'm going to probably stay a little safe here. But I'll start out with the Eagles over Carolina. Carolina is playing better, but the Eagles have kind of established themselves, so we'll see. Hopefully, they will be focused. And again, it's at Philadelphia, so I'll pick that game, Philadelphia over Carolina.
Yeah, I'm trying to decide. That was one of mine too. I'm trying to decide if I want to switch it or keep the same. I'm going to keep it. It's too easy. If Philadelphia loses, it'll be a big day for Carolina. I just don't see Philadelphia losing that game either. So I as well pick the Eagles over the Panthers at home. The Eagles are 13-point favorites in that game. So yeah, safe pick for sure. All right, game number 5. Who you going with?
I'm going to take Buffalo over the Rams. Buffalo seems to really be on a roll right now, and even though they're on the road, the Rams are so up and down. So I think Buffalo will keep going here. The Rams surprise. I mean, all of a sudden they'll have a game when they've got some good players, but I'm going to pick Buffalo in this one.
Yeah, that's not part of my pick 6, but I agree with you. They're due to lose a game they shouldn't lose here at some point. It's just stereotypical for Buffalo, but they should win this week against the Rams as well. I'm going to go with Baker Mayfield and the Bucs over the Las Vegas Raiders. Tampa is a 6.5-point favorite at home, and I like what they're doing. They're getting a little healthier right now. Bucky Irvin has been really good. And Vegas just really isn't good. So even though they almost beat the Chiefs this week, give me Tampa over Vegas. Any thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I didn't pick them, but I think that's a pretty safe pick. You would think. The NFC South is kind of like nobody wants to win that.
Yeah.
And Tampa has surprised with a couple losses, but they've got potential to play well. Mayfield, Baker's doing well. They've got a real chance to win the division, and so they don't want to mess around and lose to Vegas.
All right, game number 6. Who are you going with?
Well, it's a lot of fun to pile on the Jets, so I will go with Miami over the Jets. I don't think Miami's going to make the playoffs, but I think they have a better team, and they're probably still a little bit in the hunt for that last spot. So I see no motivation for the Jets, and it's a division game on the road, and so I think everybody's ready to switch quarterbacks in the Jets, but the quarterback won't let them, and I don't think that's a recipe for victory. So I'll go with Miami.
So I'm not making this one of my pick 6s, but I do agree that Miami wins. But with it being a division game is what kind of scared me off of it, honestly. And so Miami needs to win. I think they need to be in the playoffs. Will the Broncos let them be in the playoffs? That's the question. But I would rather watch Miami in the playoffs than Denver personally. So I think they need to start winning some football games, and they should win this week against the Jets. My last game, Dad, is I am picking the Chicago Bears to beat the San Francisco 49ers in San Francisco, by the way. And my reasoning for this is, well, of course, San Francisco is incredibly beat up. Their top 2 running backs are gone. Chicago, they fired their coach this week. So you know what that means? They're going to come out on fire this week and look really good for at least 1 week now that they have a new interim head coach there in Chicago. I'm going Bears over 49ers, mainly because of how beat up the 49ers are. But nonetheless, that's where I'm going. Your thoughts on that game?
I'm going to pick the 49ers in this one because, again, I can see what you're saying, except, they've already fired 1 or 2 other coaches, coordinators or whatever, and now the coach is fired. I don't know what this is going to rally anybody. Everybody knows, the GM's fired, so you're going to have a whole new regime next year. I think you're going to have
Poles get fired?
Huh?
Poles didn't get fired, did he?
I think didn't he? Maybe it was the Jets GM. Yeah, the Jets.
Yeah, Jets GM. Yeah, not the Bears. Yeah.
Well, surely he should get fired, but anyhow,
no, keep him. I love what he's doing in Chicago.
Yeah, well, that's very true. But I think you're going to have people jumping off the ship there in Chicago. I don't think there's enough to rally the troops at this point, and San Francisco still has a defense. They're at home. They've been in bad weather the last 2 weeks. They're not this week. The Bears maybe could beat them, and I think that San Francisco, if they've got any chance to stay in winning the division, which I don't think they do, they're going to have to win this one because they're only 2 games out from there. So
okay, let's do this real quick. Who's got the better quarterback, Caleb Williams or Brock Purdy? At the very least,
potentially Caleb Williams is.
At the very least, it's not an easy choice, right?
No.
So Caleb Williams has over 2,600 yards, 14 touchdowns, 5 picks. Purdy has over 2,700 yards, 13 touchdowns, 8 picks on the year. I think that's a really close. I think Williams is probably better than Purdy, especially long-term, for sure. Best running back, well, it goes to Chicago this week because McCaffrey and Mason are both out. Swift looked really good on Thanksgiving. And he's banged up a little bit, but I think he's still going to go. So Bears got the better running back. Receivers, you could probably still give that to San Francisco, maybe, with Debo and Jennings. But, Debo's better than anybody else Chicago has, but is Jennings that much better than DJ Moore or Allen or Odunze? I don't think that he is. So to me, it's kind of even. And then you just look at the trajectory right now. But yeah, I don't know. I could be wrong, obviously. I'm all for the Bears losing, but I think this is one that they win and really sparks a lot of more negativeness towards San Francisco going into this week as well. All right, let's talk through the other games going on this week. Let's go to Atlanta and Minnesota. Minnesota hosting. They've been really, really solid this season, 10-2 on the year. Atlanta 6-6. Minnesota 6-point favorites at home. And Minnesota's been more consistent, Dad. What do you think? Does Kirk Cousins have a revenge game in him here going back to Minnesota?
No, I mean, Minnesota to me has just been incredibly lucky. It looks like they're going to lose, and then they win these games right at the end of the game. But they're playing better. I think they're playing better than Atlanta, and they're at home. And again, they still have a lot to play for. If Green Bay wins tomorrow, all of a sudden they're looking at playing, to be in the lead of the division. So I think Minnesota. I thought Atlanta was going to be in good shape this year, but Cousins was horrible last week, and so I don't know about a revenge game there. So we will see. I picked Minnesota in this one.
Sign me up for sweet revenge. I think Kirk Cousins goes off in Minnesota this week. I got Atlanta over Minnesota. The Giants are hosting the Saints. Sign me up for I don't care. I really don't care about this game, Dan. I don't know. Who you picking, Giants or Saints?
Yeah, it's a real riveting game, no doubt about it. But I'll pick the Giants just with their defense and being at home.
All right, I'll go Saints in that one. I'm probably sealing Brian Daboll's fate. Tennessee and Jacksonville. Mac Jones taking over in Jacksonville. The Titans are a game up on Jacksonville right now. Neither of these teams a threat in the South. Jacksonville or Tennessee for you?
I'm going to pick Jacksonville, but either team could win. And again, not one that, I care a whole lot about. It's not going to influence a lot of things. So,
yeah, I'll go Tennessee just because they're at home in this one. And Mac Jones is in at quarterback for Jacksonville. Pittsburgh and Cleveland. This could be a game that is actually a lot of fun. Maybe not good necessarily, but a lot of fun all at the same time. Pittsburgh at home, of course, they are 6.5-point favorites in this one. They're the better team, but do they get the win in this divisional battle?
Well, I was looking at the schedules of the teams' games remaining, and Pittsburgh's got a rough schedule, so they need to win this one because they've got some tough teams coming up, and they're at home. Like I said, Jameis Winston, boy, they put up points this last week and everything. But I'm going to pick Pittsburgh. I think they've been a good team all year, and but they do have some tough games down the stretch.
Last one then is Arizona and Seattle. Seattle keeps finding a way to win, but the Cardinals, I feel like they're starting to hit stride as well. So I'm going Arizona. Who are you going with in this game?
Yeah, I'm going to go Arizona. I think they have a chance still to win the division, and this would be a big game, obviously, in that. Seattle, though, has found the ways to win, but I'll pick Arizona in this one.
All right. So when we look at these games, Dad, and we're starting to see how important coaching is in the NFL, and we've seen good coaches and bad coaches, and I started to think about right now in the NFL landscape, who are the top 5? Because there's some really good young coaches in the game right now, but who are the top 5 NFL coaches currently going? And I think we're probably going to disagree on some of these, but let's start with the one I know we're going to agree with, and that's Andy Reid. I think he's the best coach currently in the NFL, and I would like to think you would agree with me with that.
Yes. Yeah, I had to put Andy Reid number 1, no doubt about it.
Yeah, his old boss, of course, finalist for the Hall of Fame this year, Mike Holmgren. Exciting times for us Green Bay fans. But yeah, Andy Reid's there. I'm curious, Dad. I'm curious at your list. So give me the other 4 guys you got on your list.
You want all 4 of them, you said?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. I've got Mike Tomlin. I've got Sean McVay. I've got Sean Payton, and I have John Harbaugh.
Okay, so we're not going to disagree as much as I thought we were. So let's start with John Harbaugh in Baltimore. He's a Super Bowl winning coach. He's consistent. The team is consistently good. He's been there for a long time. He's my second on my list is John Harbaugh. I think he's a really, really good football coach. And I've had to come around a little bit on him because I thought maybe it was time for him to move on to something different, another team. That was like 3 years ago now. And he just keeps winning football games. So I think John Harbaugh he's not up there with Andy Reid, who I think is a clear-cut Hall of Fame coach. But I think John Harbaugh has been really, really good there in Baltimore. What do you like most about John Harbaugh?
Like you said, he's just consistent. He's consistent year in, year out. He's obviously a good coach. He's got the resume. He's won the Super Bowl. He's had stacked teams. He's had teams that weren't as good, but his coaching seems to be consistent. So just seemed very solid.
Yeah. Mike Tomlin, I also have on my list. He is number 3 on my list. Again, what he's been able to do with no losing records is incredible. And granted, he hasn't been to the playoffs every year, hasn't won a lot of Super Bowls, especially since Ben Roethlisberger washed up. But what he's been able to do consistently winning football games and being at least average every single year has been impressive. Any other thoughts on Mike Tomlin?
Yeah, again, he's just consistent. He's won even when he hasn't had as good a teams. I think depending on how his career ends up, I think he could be a Hall of Fame coach just because of his longevity and the way he's done and he's had success. And so yeah, I think he was when you said pick the top five, it was pretty easy to put him in there. I had him number 2 actually. So
okay, I was surprised that you have Sean Payton in this list for whatever reason. Obviously, he was very good in New Orleans, and he had an elite quarterback there. Comes into Denver, doesn't look good with Russell Wilson, but he gets his guy, the guy that he wanted, Bo Nix at quarterback. And man, have they been able to win some football games. It's reminded me how good of a coach he is. I've got Sean Payton on my list as well. For that reason, I had him number 4 on my list, and impressed with what he's doing, especially this year, kind of reminding us how good of a coach that he is.
Yeah, like I said, he's just he's good, and the fact that he's turning things around somewhat in Denver, and he had great longevity there in New Orleans and had good teams. So yeah, I felt like he was one of them.
Then the last one, I got a bunch of guys kind of in this category. I put Kyle Shanahan in my list at number 5, and Sean McVay was in the running for this. But I feel like Kyle Shanahan has been able to, till this year, be successful with a non-elite quarterback. And he's been able to draw up a system, use guys creatively. He's kind of, his dad's the founder, but he's been an important role of that offensive style that is used in Los Angeles, that is used in Green Bay. I just think Kyle Shanahan's a really good football coach. So I put him as 5, ahead of Sean McVay, ahead of Matt LaFleur, who we both really like. And I'll talk about some other guys in a moment. But what has McVay at that up there in that top 5 for you?
Well, I think one, because he did win the Super Bowl, and I think even though he's had some turnover with players, I don't think you ever see the Rams and you say, "Wow, they lost because of coaching." I just don't think so from that standpoint. It seems like again, he's been very innovative in a lot of ways. He came from the Shanahan tree, but he kind of put his own stamp in it. Again, I've looked at a lot of different things and heard a lot of articles and things about these young coaches, and it just seemed to me again like if I was going to pick a coach and say, hey, I need this coach for my team, I think McVay is definitely one of the guys I'd look at.
How hard was it for you to keep LaFleur out of this list?
I think with the top 5, again, I've got 3 guys tied for number 6, and LaFleur is one of those. So I think, given another year or two, LaFleur's established himself to be able to, handle players. Now, again, we're probably a little more privy to that. I really to keep up on kind of what's going on at Green Bay, and he has really been great at, getting along with players. He was able to handle things with Aaron Rodgers. Now he's got a little bit more of a stamp. He definitely, we'll see how it ends up this year, but offensively, he knows how to come up with game plans, definitely knows his stuff, maybe as well as any of those guys in the Shanahan tree. No doubt about it. A little different personality than most of the rest of them. But, I think he's right there. I think in 2 years, we make this list, he may very well be there.
Okay. Who are the other guys you had in that same spot?
I had Shanahan, LaFleur, and McDonald from Minnesota.
Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah, that's it. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm similar to you in that. I have next to Kevin O'Connell's name, I have written good. He's a good coach. Obviously, what he's doing this year, yes, luck plays a role into it, but it plays a role into everybody, good or bad. I think what he's been able to do this year, specifically with that defense and with the offense still being successful, is showing kind of his coaching chops, especially this year as well. I think he earns the respect up there. Now, that's interesting, though, because we got some other names that some people might be sitting there going, why are they not there? So let's start with Jim Harbaugh. Again, you have shared your thoughts on how much you dislike to be Jim Harbaugh. But and Dad, you're saying McDonald in Seattle or O'Connell in Minnesota?
O'Connell in Minnesota.
Okay, making sure, because Kevin was all excited. He thought you were talking about Seattle and thought he was getting excited because somebody said something nice about Seattle on this show, which does not happen. In time.
O'Connell in Minnesota.
Okay, so let's talk about Jim Harbaugh real quick. I didn't put him in my top 5 because I think kind of what you were talking about with LaFleur and his ability to relate with players, that's not really Harbaugh's strength. And so I did not put Harbaugh in my top 5. I think he's a very good coach, and I think in time he'll have the Chargers at least sniffing the AFC Championship game. I don't know about this year, but soon. So I think he's a good coach. You just don't have. I don't know what your problem is with Jim Harbaugh, other than you just don't like him.
Well, from an NFL standpoint, he was in there before, and he won a Super Bowl, and he got fired. So, I think he would need a few more years before, he'd be up where his brother is.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, no, I don't put him up there with John yet, but I mean, he's, I think he's a good coach still. Let's talk about Dan Campbell, because people will just think we're hating on the Lions. I think Dan Campbell is a great motivator, but I really think next year when you strip away Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson from his staff, I don't think it's going to continue. I think that his staff has been so well built. Now, maybe he finds people to replace them that are really good as well. I still don't trust Dan Campbell to be my coach. And that's why I did not have him sniffing this list of top 5. Where do you put Dan Campbell in the list of things? What is your respect level with him?
Again, you're right. He's got great coordinators, and I think if he loses the offensive coordinator, which he almost has to at some point, then I think that's going to make a big difference. You have to admire Campbell the way he turned that franchise around. He's energized the players, he's energized the fans, but I think that'll run its course. I don't know that he's a great football coach. Like I said, he's got coordinators that help him there. Again, now if they get in the Super Bowl this year and they're in the championship game 3 out of the next 4 years, okay, but I don't think it'll last. I don't think it'll last that long, and I think his style will wear out. Fresh has been his coordinators.
I agree. Other guys that I think are worth mentioning, Nick Sirianni in Philadelphia. He didn't sniff the list because people in Philadelphia don't trust him, but he wins games, and he wins a lot of games. So I got him up there. Dan Quinn, I love what he's doing in Washington. If Kingsbury leaves this year, we'll see what the offense looks like. But I really respect Dan Quinn. And I like DeMeco Ryans as well in Houston. But these are all guys that are going to have to do a few things to kind of prove to me that they deserve to be up there. And I mean, they're all young guys. McDonald in Seattle has been really good this year, but it's 1 year. I got to see more from those guys. Same with New England. I love their coach, Jared Mayo, but we got to see a lot more from him as well. Tennessee, the coach there might end up being good before it's all said and done, but in time. So, I mean, I don't know. Any thoughts on Sirianni, Quinn, or Ryans?
I had Ryans on my list, but again, we need to see a couple more years to see how that's going to go. But it looks like he turned things around there. Sirianni could be. We'll just have to see how that ends up. To me, he does some interesting things, and I don't know. So we will we'll see from there. Quinn could be really, really good. But he didn't make it with one team, but boy, he's turned things around there in Washington. So we'll see how that goes. The other guy, and again, he was a guy we were kind of writing off, but depending on the team, Buffalo's really hot this year.
You're right, Sean
I don't know where McDermott might fall. If they continue. Now, again, he's a coach that's got the number one quarterback, and that never hurts. But overall, I think he's done well at Buffalo. We'll see. He might be in that list. I mean, I like Peterson, but, that's not going well at all in Jacksonville. As far as X's and O's, McCarthy's a good coach, but he went into a, bad spot in Dallas, and, that's not going to end well there. Eventually he'll end up being the Steelers coach, and then we'll see how it goes there. So
I don't think he's going to be the Steelers coach, Dad. I would have thought that a few years back, but not now. Yeah, you're right. Sean McDermott, I should have brought up as well, because he should be. The reason I didn't put him in my top 5 was, again, elite quarterback, elite running back. He had some questionable things in the past, in the playoffs especially, that made me kind of wonder a little bit. I'd put him ahead of Sirianni. I'd probably put him around the Kevin O'Connell range, maybe slightly ahead of him too. Maybe he's my 7th guy. I like LaFleur a lot. I like McVay a lot. And I think McDermott's done some really good things for sure as well. All right. Oh, by the way, the guy in Arizona is doing a great job this year. So maybe in time. I mean, there's a lot of young guys right now out there that can make things happen in the years to come. All right, very good. Fun conversation. We plan to be back next week, and we'll have some information. We got some new sponsors coming onto the show now. We'll talk about those next week and promote those next week. But VidAngel has joined the program, and Pet Friendly Box has joined the program as well as sponsors. And, of course, Righteous Felon Jerky's been with us for a while now. You go to righteousfelon.com, use the code STOVE15. You're going to get 20% off your purchase at the moment. It'll go back to 15 at some point, but great stocking stuffers there as well. Dad, anything you need to add before we close out?
Nope. Exciting weekend this weekend coming up in football, and we've got 2 or 3 more here as we get into playoffs, both in college and in the NFL. So a lot of great football. Most of the high school football is either wrapped up or is wrapping up, with state championships coming up, and that's been exciting. So, a lot of football.
I've got a really special program coming up on Saturday. So tomorrow night I'll be live with Jonathan Duff. We're going to recap EKU's tough loss in the FCS playoffs, and then we're going to hand out some awards, EKU awards, to people. Saturday, though, I'm going to sit down with 5 football players from EKU, 5 seniors that just graduated, and they're going to share stories throughout their time in college, things about teammates, coaches, games, experiences, transfer portal, all kinds of stuff we're going to talk about. And so I'm sitting down. Jonathan Duff will be with me. Ryan Jackson will be with me. John Stone's going to be with me. Those 3 are locked in. And then we're waiting on D. Bake and Vincent Munlin to confirm with us. And if they don't make it, Pat Nations may join us. So we got a lot of fun stuff. And that's going to be Saturday night. It's going to be around 7:15 Eastern time right here on the Sports Stove Media YouTube channel. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So I hope you'll tune in and enjoy that program. We're going to have a great time with these guys talking. They played together for 5 years and came in the COVID year. And so there's a lot to talk about with these guys. So we're going to have a good time. They'll all be together, and we'll just be chatting, and they'll be sharing stories Saturday night. If you like college football, I really think you're going to like the program. And so I hope you'll tune in and enjoy that with us on Saturday. All right, follow us on social media at Sports Stove on Twitter and Instagram. Me and Dad plan to be back next week on Wednesday to talk more football with you right here. Thanks for tuning in to tonight's edition of the Sports Stove Football Show. Until next time, we'll see you around the Sports Stove.